2020, the government of Zimbabwe signed into law Freedom of Information Act, which is repealing the infamous Access to Information and Protection of Privacy Act, IPA. The Freedom of Information Act is a new law that paves way for any person in Zimbabwe to request information from public organizations, private organizations, commercials, or the government departments. This information is requested by the public according to the procedure provided for in the new act. People in Zimbabwe are therefore allowed to request information from parastatals, ministries, churches, local authorities, non-governmental organizations, among others. Tege Life International, a girls' and young women's rights organization, in partnership with Foyo IMS and Identities Media TV, is hosting this high-level dialogue in belated commemoration of World Press Freedom Day, but also as part of the launch of the My Freedom of Information MIFOI campaign that seeks to publicize this new law for women, girls, youths, and journalists to be able to use the new law to promote their own rights. Tag others, comment about what you think about this new law, and stand a chance to win a MIFOI cool t-shirt. Again, tag others, leave a comment, have others comment on your comment to win a cool MIFOI t-shirt. So today I am at the Ministry of Information, Publicity and Broadcasting Services, and I want to brag and say I get an opportunity to sit down with Monica Mutshangwa. Thank you for making time.
Nyari, it's a pleasure to give you this opportunity to talk to you. I really am very happy to see you after a long time.
It has been a very long time. I think the last time we met in New York, But thank you very much for taking time to assist us launch this My Freedom of Information dialogue or high-level dialogue that is promoting the Freedom of Information Act that was signed into law last year, which sits in your office, ma'am. So we are so honored that you're here, and I have a few questions that maybe the citizens would like to hear what the heart of this act was. We know it is replacing IPA. We know there's been a lot of talk before this. So one of the key questions that we have is, what is the government doing to make sure that people are aware of this information as it is enshrined in the Constitution, and making sure that every citizen has the knowledge about this law, especially women and girls?
Yeah, first of all, I'm quite happy and excited that you are actually unpacking the Freedom of Information Bill. It's an act now, and we are very happy that it's a ministry. We started off from the time Second Republic came into place. We didn't take time as a ministry. We started our media reforms, and this we are doing in line with the vision of the President, Comrade E.D. Mnangagwa, our President, who is saying nobody should be left behind. We need to move with everybody. And so it's important also to make sure that we align all our acts with our Constitution. Right. Our Constitution, which was endorsed in 2018, it's a people-driven Constitution. And as such, it's important that we align all our acts with the Constitution. So the Freedom of Information Bill is part of the repeal of IPA. Yes. And IPA has made a lot of noise out there. We are saying, as a ministry of the Second Republic, we want to work with everybody. Right. We want to remove the polarization which has been there. There is no them and us. There is no private media and public media. As the minister of this ministry, my door is open to everybody. All the media institutions, I work with them equally, because at the end of the day, we are the people who build this country. Rebranding Zimbabwe requires that each and everyone comes on board. Right. It is not just the government, but it is about the media institutions. All of us together, we need to rebrand our country. This yesteryear is gone. That time when people would not be availed with information is gone. We are saying the Constitution is clearly talking to freedom of expression, freedom of information. That is in the Constitution, chapter 61 and 62. Yes. And for us, that is critical.
In terms of making sure that women, children, rather citizens know about this, is there a plan by the government to roll out this Freedom of Information Act over and above, of course, what we are already doing as well, just to hear from the government perspective.
First of all, the Second Republic is very open with information, very transparent, accountable. It was the first Second Republic's initiative to come up with post-cabinet briefing, just to make sure that the people out there, because the government is accountable to the people, to the electorate, and as such, it is only fair for the electorate to know what is the cabinet discussing, what resolutions they've taken, and this we did it as part of giving back information to the rightful people. Yeah. So these are some of the moves. We've also seen the programs of government, because that is the main mandate of our ministry, to make sure that we educate, we inform and entertain people. We have also made sure that programs of government, whether it's TSP, now we are talking of National Development Strategy 1, we need to really unpack so that the beneficiaries, these projects and programs are being done to make sure that we lift the standards of living of our people. And it's only fair for the people to understand what their government is doing. And what our ministry is doing together with other ministries is to make sure that we go all out to the people. This is why we have licensed community radios, because what the community radios, we've looked at what we would call the minority languages, where in some areas where they've never accessed television or radio, we have made it a point that those are the areas where we have gone. We licensed one community radio in Beitbridge, another in Chirezi, another one in Chipinge, Garawa there, another one in Nyanga, another one in Binga, in Kariba. We are doing all this to make sure that we don't leave anybody behind. Right. Not only are we looking at just giving them information, but we're looking at getting information from the communities. We want talent to be identified in these communities. We don't have to wait for talent, young people who are very good at soccer or musicians to be identified in Harare. Let them also be identified from Binga. Let them be identified from Shampa. Let them identified from Manama, there in Mad South. Beitbridge, Chipinge. We are saying no one is more important than the other. That's the Second Republic.
Yes. And while we are also there, would we maybe expect to see the ministry and the government partnering maybe with the existing media houses, radio stations, newspapers, and all this to really drive this, to let people know more about this new fantastic act that the government has put in?
I told you about the post-cabinet briefings, where we are calling in all media houses. Even in times of COVID-19, we have not censored anybody. It's an open invitation to all media houses in this country, so that they hear it themselves from the horse's mouth. As the spokesperson of cabinet and government, I give them as it comes out of cabinet. And I must tell you, the stories are published in all the newspapers in this country. As government, we work with the national broadcasters, NBC, who work with all these other institutions. We also work with some papers, but on many occasions, I've heard the editors from independent newspapers. They come here and we talk and we see and we share information, and they give us their perspective, where they feel. In stakeholder consultation is very important in the Second Republic. We have not even coming up with the Freedom of Information Bill. It was not just about us here sitting in this ministry and say, okay, this is the how we want it to come out. No. We went out there. Workshops were carried out. All interested stakeholders did come, and all their input was considered.
Wonderful, ma'am. Wonderful work. I just want to maybe throw in a question that you may think about, if you can put it somewhere, in terms of, I understand the cabinet briefings, as much as it is pushing also the practicalities of this freedom of information. I also just am thinking about the person in the raw community as well, to say, do they have access to television, but also because I'm sure it goes through radio, they also hear the news on the radio. That is very commendable. I have another question, because some of the things that this new law is doing is to protect journalists. So what are some of the practical steps that the government has put to ensure the safety and security of journalists? Because we know through IPA also that was a contentious area as well.
The safety of journalists, the welfare of journalists is very close to our heart.
Yes.
Very close to my heart. I want to be very clear that we consider our journalists a special breed. They are very, very essential. And that has come out very clear with COVID-19 lockdown last year in March 2020, when the president promulgated that lockdown. We as a ministry fought to make sure that the journalists, media, all people in media are all designated as essential service.
Yes.
So they are not stopped. They would have to go in there because they've got a critical role to play. We have successfully done what we've done as a country in containing the COVID-19 pandemic simply because of the job which the media has been doing. It's all about information. I mean, even ZIMVAC report attests to the fact that our people, 98% of our Zimbabwean people in this country are aware of the preventative and precautionary measures which have been put in place by the WHO protocol, the WHO protocols, and also government. So a question of knowing that you need to mask up, you need to sanitize, social distancing, this has been done by the media under very difficult circumstances. And when government went ahead, thanks to the re-engagement and engagement efforts of our president, Zimbabwe has been one of the first in Africa and many other countries to receive vaccinations. And this, we can't take it for granted. Right. Some people, they think, oh, these vaccinations are coming, they are coming from China. They are not coming from China to Zimbabwe only. There is a big market. There are big countries buying these vaccinations from China. What we are very grateful about is the People's Republic of China has prioritized Zimbabwe to put it on the top. You know, Covaxin. Yeah, I was talking the other vaccines as well. The other vaccines, yes, we hear about them, but Zimbabwe has not been prioritized. So we are very grateful that because of Zimbabwe's good relationship with China, we were prioritized and we have vaccines. The measures that the ministry has practically put as it relates to the welfare. I mean, we appreciate especially just the ability to cross the roadblocks when lockdowns hit and just flashing your card and police allowing you to go. It really felt good for me and I know for many colleagues. And I would like to invite other colleagues, if you're watching right now, to give us feedback, because we would want to submit further feedback to the ministry to say, okay, this is what the minister is saying around your welfare. If you feel anything, please write. And this is the ministry that has said they welcome feedback. I think the minister will really welcome how the welfare of journalists is practically being improved, especially with the freedom of information. But coming to the people who are close at your heart as well, the women and girls, how do you think they can maximize in terms of just knowing about this law, the freedom of information? Practically speaking, what are some of the gains that women and girls could have? Let me say, first of all, right now with the new phenomenon of social media, there is so much information going around on the social media. Some of it right information, some of it wrong information, fake information. Some of the information can destroy homes, some of the information can actually destroy countries, some of the information. So we are saying, as a Ministry of Information, we have made it important that we've got a two-way communication with the public. Right. We realize the importance of our people to validate what they're reading on social media, especially in view of this pandemic. You know, there's a lot of things which are said which can actually damage, which can make us fail to observe the protocols by WHO. And what we've done as a ministry is to come up with a call center. And that is free. That's fantastic. 2023 is just for you to dial. You don't have to pay anything. This is across all networks. Across all networks. Wow. We have. You can ask in Shona, Debele, in Tonga, in English. There are people who are ready to validate whatever you would have read about. And so we are saying, because this is open information, we want to be transparent. We want everyone to be able to understand why is government carrying out that particular project. If there's a problem which is happening in your community, you should be free to call and say this thing happening. And with devolution, because that's another thing. Devolution, all what it means is we are going all the way to the grassroots. And devolution actually calls for every member of the community to participate even in economic activities around their local community. So we are doing that to make sure that, and as a ministry, we do have information officers all the way to the ward level. And they are there to quickly make sure they dispose all this wrong this abuse information which is wrong, and they also give the right information, and they also inform the population about opportunities which may be there. They are full-time working with the people, and from this district level we go to the provincial level, and they feed information every day. Sitting in this office, I get information from all our rural communities from the 10 provinces in the country.
So what would be the advice you give to women to proactively take this to wonderful the ministry?
I want to encourage the women out there to say there's a lot which you can do. Don't sit back and think you are not capable, because women are. You know, we are, as a woman who have always mentored young girls, I know women sometimes just need a little bit of validation. They need a little bit of instilling confidence. But there's a lot, just to tell you how Zimbabwe successfully responded to COVID-19. All this is being done by women. For your own information, the National Interministerial Task Force on COVID-19 is being chaired by a woman. I mean, and then when the national coordinator, the person who is coordinating all the national task force work in this country is being carried out by a woman, Dr. Agnes Mahombo. And in terms of informing the risk communication and information, yours truly is doing it. So these women are women of this country, just like you. So we're saying, let's get out and get the information, get involved. These community radios in your communities, get involved. There is a role for you to play all the time.
So, Minister, before we move on, there are two key questions that are being raised by citizens. The question of the 21 days provision. We know there's 48 hours for someone within the new Act access to information, where they're saying you can ask within 48 hours, and then someone could say, oh, this is not urgent enough, or this is not, we don't feel like your life is at risk. So the subjecting it to someone's judgment, people feel like someone can render them to 21 days and to further 14 days. Journalists are saying it is against the urgency of the matter.
Nyali, we need to be progressive and proactive, and we need to believe in ourselves as human beings. We need to be realistic. The government has gone all out to make sure that there are these media reforms. And the repeal of IPA, it was done out of wanting to make sure that we adhere to what is enshrined in the Constitution. This is a government of the Second Republic which respects people's wishes, which were actually enshrined in that Constitution. The practicality of getting information, the just 21 days, just making sure that at least the information will be given within that time. The people, there will be information officers designated in these offices to make sure that at least people can actually access information. There is no games played here. This is about availing information to people, because we all realize information is power. All what the rights which have been enshrined in the Constitution, if people don't have access to the information, that will come to naught. So the issues of people, officers who sit on them, these are issues which can be they can be brought to book, and we'll deal with that as a ministry. Otherwise, we are here to make sure that information is accessed. We want our people to access information. That's the whole point of the Freedom of Information Bill. Right. So yes, we would like information within 48 hours, but we know how it is. And also paying for this, there is paperwork, there is photocopying which needs to be done. There may be a need to make sure that one has to go and research. So this is the little amounts which needs to be paid for. And this is done worldwide. Well, so whilst we're coming up with the Freedom of Information Bill, I want you to know that we also were benchmarking with other countries. Okay. As I told you, that it was all stakeholders.
So it's administrative.
It's administrative.
Minimal.
Yes, minimal administration fees.
Okay, so God, thank you very much for clearing those issues, for emphasizing the trust that this is done in good faith, and that when someone is approaching the information officers, by the way, which we may want to know if they've been put in yet, or by when to expect to roll out from the government to have put those in all these key organizations. But I also want to ask about the BSA amendment bill, given that IPA has been repealed. When do we get this?
Very soon, very soon. The BSA, as you are aware, the enactment of laws. The Attorney General is, I don't know how many laws which they are going through. So it takes it's a process. So it's not an event, and as such, the bill is on track and is now waiting, as I say, the Attorney General's office. We will be very happy to just make sure that it's put into place, because it will help us a lot. Again, this is a process of engagement, and we want to engage with the stakeholders, to continue to engage stakeholders so that we come up with an act which is Zimbabwe. Right.
In closing, Honorable Minister, what would be your advice to journalists and ordinary citizens as far as just enjoying this freedom of information, but also highlighting the mistrust that IPA had built as we rebuild our nation?
As we rebuild our nation, it's important to remove all the mistrust. We are saying we don't want polarization. There's no one who is more special than the other. As journalists, we have a job to do. And our job is to make sure that we entertain people, we educate people, and we inform people. And this is about responsibility. We are talking here about responsible journalism. Right. The envelope, brown envelope journalism is long gone. Right. We are availing information as to what the government is doing. The government programs, projects, clearly is put to you. The post-vocabulary briefing brings to you all the information. So that is being accountable to the people. And we are saying on the part of journalists, it's important to be responsible. You know, being a journalist doesn't mean you're above the law. What it means is you're collecting information and you're informing people. So responsibility is very important.
Absolutely. Wow. This was a fantastic privilege, Honorable Minister, to sit down with you and just hear you out as the government that has put the Freedom of Information Act that is allowing citizens, you, my dear viewer who's watching us today, wherever you are from, you now have the right to approach any public or private institution pertaining any information that you want. Of course, there are responsibilities that come with that right in terms of they will also determine is this information not putting the country at risk in terms of security or in terms of other people's privacy. Also, it includes that information like the abuse of women or gender-based violence, rape, whatever, such information, you may not get it. But for the most part, this Freedom of Information Act is ours. We have been crying for access to information in Zimbabwe. We have been saying IPA is not for our advantage. Now there is a law that is giving you freedom. You as journalists, you as women, you as girls, you as citizens, men and women, go out and enjoy. Go to your council, ask for information, ask about devolution. Where are we at? How much money came to us? What is in for us? Women, are you helping shelters being built? Whatever it is, engage. You had the Honorable Minister. I am in a beautiful office. Again, thank you so much. Join us in the next segment as we hear from some colleagues about this new law. Have a good one. In the studio today, today I have these two brilliant ladies who are here to talk to us about what the new law mean in terms of policy. I know a lot of NGOs have been working around this in terms of also ensuring that the constitution is working for the people, because this new law is provided for by the constitution. It was quite a bone of contention for many years in our country. As I said in the preamble, that IPA is quite infamous. You might have seen what as we had the minister speak about certain things, but I want to hear from these ladies. Please, first of all, introduce yourselves, where you're coming from, and what you think. I feel like I need to just understand what you feel about this new law.
Thank you very much, Nyari, and thank you for having us. So my name is Nompilo Smanje, for our audience sake.
Yes.
The Legal and ICT Police Officer for the Media Institute of Southern Africa. And I'm really glad that we are having this conversation around the Freedom of Information Act. And I think I agree with what you said earlier, that this law is quite important, right, because it's replacing a law that was considered globally to be a draconian law, to be a very bad law, IPA, the Access to Information and Protection of Privacy Act. Right. And also, of course, it's putting into action the right to freedom of information as provided for in the Constitution of Zimbabwe. That every person has a right to access information from almost every entity in Zimbabwe. Wow. So it's really quite interesting that we have this enabling act that now facilitates exercise of that right in terms of the Constitution. Yeah.
Wow. Nompilo is a lawyer, so we're excited. I mean, you already touched on amazing stuff, but over to you, madam. Please introduce yourself and a little preamble like Nompilo just did.
Hello, viewers. My name is Eve Nyemba, and I'm from Zimbabwe Coalition on Debt and Development. I'm the Senior Programs Officer. And I'm excited to be here and to talk about the Freedom of Information Act, because it brings so many advantages, particularly for women. I like the aspect where women can actually go and access information from several government departments concerning the performance of those ministries and those government departments. And it's very important for transparency and accountability, particularly in the management of public finances. It is very important that citizens who have a right to access to information, it's a constitutional right, can actually go and access information pertaining to the management of the national purse, which is quite important for our budgeting processes, and it gives us a lot of inclusion in terms of participation of citizens, particularly women and girls who have been marginalized from economic governance.
Well, so Nompilo, you've already touched on the issue of this, how constitutionalistic this is. What does that mean? How was the old law like, and what is the new law providing for us? We have heard from Eve that now it's going to allow people to have access to public information as far as public finance is concerned. She already jumped into it, but we want to hear the fundamentals of this as it begins. What was IPA like? What is this one providing? Are you optimistic or pessimistic about this one?
Thank you very much, Nyari. I am definitely optimistic about it. But I think it also lies in the practicalization of the act itself and the enforcement. But from the perspective of the framing of the law itself as it currently stands, I am very optimistic and I'm very happy. Well, when we look at IPA, Nyari, IPA was also a law that looked at three aspects. I think that's one very critical issue. Right. IPA was a law that touched on three aspects, being protection of personal information, access to information, and also media regulation. So it was a law that then was unbundled. Cabinet approved its repeal in 2019, and then now we have a standalone Freedom of Information Act. So I think that's very important, because then we have a law that is very substantive and it touches specifically on issues of freedom of information. But also you note that in terms of IPA, there were so many restrictions. For instance, that access to information was limited only to citizens and permanent residents in Zimbabwe. But in terms of this law now, any person can request for information. So it's not limited to citizenship.
Right.
or it's not limited to permanent residents, but any person who wishes to inquire on anything that is happening within the Zimbabwean government or the ministries or the parastatals or even the private entities, they now have an opportunity to do that. And just like what Eve was saying, it's important for transparency and accountability. So we're really optimistic, but also we see that we are very progressive in terms of what the law is providing for vis-a-vis what was provided for in IPA. There's so many of the aspects that I want to touch on, but I think I'll end here for now.
Well, feel free. I mean, time flies before you realize we are done. But I have a quick question to follow up on one key thing that you said IPA did not provide for. For example, I think even in my preamble that any person in Zimbabwe can request this information as long as one is in Zimbabwe. Why is it important also that any person, because you highlighted that a non-Zimbabwean could not access maybe this information. So my question is why any person, why do we want to sell maybe our state secrets to other people? If I went to America today or to Russia, am I going to have the right to their public information or private information? Is that being provided or cannot? That's
quite an interesting question, Yadi, and thank you for that. But yeah, I think I needed to put a disclaimer there that when we say you have the right to access information, it's not any and every kind of information. So there's also information that is protected information in terms of the Act. So there are exemptions to the nature of information that people have access to. For instance, deliberations within the cabinet are not information that is open to the public. The same applies also to cases where, for instance, these are protection of, let's say, victims, the victims unit department. Information within that department is also protected information. And of course, information relating to, be it maybe national economic interests, or generally even the defense of the country or national security.
Is it listed some of the things that cannot be obtained? Because do we not then have to run the risk of going the IPA way to say, okay, remember, today I'm just the devil's advocate. I'm thinking on behalf of the state and the citizen. So if you are saying, okay, you're listing all that, but then in the Act, is it clear to say such information? Because where do we draw the line? If I went to the, maybe to a certain ministry, because there's also the Auditor General's report that there's a lot of misuse of funds. I'm sure this is something you want to touch on, and there's a lot of corruption. If I went to government departments today and there's this clause that says you might not be given, is it clear which kind of information that I can get, or they may end up saying all the information you might not be given?
No,
when we draw the lines.
Yes, thank you very much for that. Yeah, I think that's then where we start to see maybe the progressive nature of the law itself.
But because it's not stipulated.
It's stipulated, which is why I'm saying it's progressive, because it's there. The law is clearly laying out the exemptions where which specify the kind of information that cannot be availed.
Right.
And also, even when the citizen makes an information request, the law is saying where that information request is denied, the information officer should give reasons why they could not give you that information. So definitely then there's a form of accountability mechanism that is placed there. So even when they don't give you information, you still have a basis to say, okay, this is what you relied on to not give me information. Is this provided for in terms of the law? Is this a legal exemption, or is just a reason that you are picking from somewhere out there? So the mechanism is there to ensure that the information officers and the necessary stakeholders will not withhold information for their own personal reasons.
Right. Madam.
Yes, I like the fact that the law is there, and it also then provides protection of information, which is quite pertinent to state security.
Yeah.
But also the other thing that we have to look at is the time, the waiting period for access to that information. It's 21 days. Which is
provided for in the Act.
Yeah? Yes, it's 21 days. And if that information is not provided, a further 14 days have to be put into place.
That's about 37 days, if I'm correct.
Yes. Yeah. So that's quite a long time. And sometimes the information might be stale when someone gets it.
Maybe that they needed to limit the waiting period.
So is there something that you guys can still pick up up who can address this issue, though. It's very important that you're raising this fundamental information. Who then can, are we still able to change this? Who put the 21 days?
Actually,
Okay, before you jump in, the word that I was looking for was amendment.
Okay,
I think that
right.
there's need for amending
Yes.
that act in view of the waiting
amend
period.
that.
Yes, because we are looking at situations, perhaps there is corruption,
Yes.
there's criminality that is
Yes.
involved, and it takes 21 days.
And by that time, someone is good and dying.
Yes, is hiding all the information. So I think that there's need for an amendment to that act in that instance.
So what does this mean to a citizen? I know you guys work with you, and you already started touching on the issue of public finance. How does it practically look like to a citizen?
Yeah, if you're a citizen, you have a right to demand transparency and accountability in the management of public finances from your government. So that means that you have the right to access the documents, the national budget statement, the OAG report, everything that's associated with it, the reports from the ministries.
Report.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. You have the right to access, and you have the right to actually say whatever you want concerning that law, whatever loopholes that you find
Right.
that are in there. Yes, so it's very important to minimize corruption. It's very important also to enhance transparency in terms of the performance of parastatals. It's been actually dismal. And there's been a lot of corruption. There's been a lot of mismanagement of finances that has been happening. So it's quite important that citizens have access to this information, because it improves actually the performance of these public entities.
I have so many questions, and I think so do you. If you have many questions, please do write on the comments, and we want to hear from you. We'll answer them in the next conversations that we're going to have. We're taking a quick break. When we get back, we want to get deeper in understanding you are talking about public finances. Why should I care to go and find out my council irkuitachi? Why should I care about it? Why is it important to my bread and butter issues? But and then more over and above this, we've already started to see certain things, the loopholes within the new law that says 21 days. For instance, for real, if someone was being corrupt, it gives them enough time to hide a lot of things, to adjust documents and all this thing. We want to come back and hear all about it. We're taking a quick break. Stay with us. So we continue with the conversation on this high-level dialogue where we are talking to authorities and citizens, journalists, women, girls, that they must know about the new Freedom of Information Act. And I'm so honored right now to be at Commissioner Miriam Tose Majome, who is in the Media Commission, to understand what this new law means to the commission in as far as pushing for the agenda of commission is concerned, but mostly as it relates to the achieving of those goals to the benefit of the citizens, especially women and girls and youth. So, Commissioner, what are your thoughts around this new Freedom of Information Act? Just from a standpoint of a lawyer, a standpoint of a citizen, but also a commissioner.
Thank you very much, Nyari, for this wonderful opportunity that you've given me to speak on behalf of the Media Commission, and speaking on my own behalf, I would say, as a citizen, as a woman, and as an active member of this society. The Freedom of Information Act was passed last year in June, and it's one of the acts that the Zimbabwe Media Commission oversees in its mandate. Yes, because it relates to sections 61 and 62 of the Constitution, which are to promote rights of freedom of expression, freedom of the media, and access to information. So it's one of our key roles and one of the things that we really love to do as the Commission. So when this act was passed, it is one of at least the 3 that are set to repeal IPA. So when it was passed last year, we received it with great celebration, great aplomb, because it speaks to one of those key rights, that is freedom of access to information. Access to information. What this entails is that every citizen of Zimbabwe, and everybody really who is protected by the laws of Zimbabwe, has a right to seek information that pertains to pursuit of a right. There's so many rights in the Constitution: right to life, right of liberty, political rights, so many of them, there are just so many of them, gender, everything. So there are certain types of information that are held by public institutions that ordinary citizens would want to pursue those rights. For example, if a woman wants to campaign for a certain seat, like in this where we are, she has a right to go to perhaps the city council, she has a right to go to government bodies, all sorts, and seek information that would help her to campaign, the knowledge that she needs, what are the problems, what are the budgets like, what money has been allocated to councils, what has central government been doing about all sorts of issues. So she has a right to seek that if she wants to be a well-rounded citizen, if she wants to campaign, because we are no longer in this era of just voting for women because they are women, but we also want them to know the issues, to be in touch with the issues. So women have a right to go to those public bodies, whichever they've identified, that will help them pursue those rights of theirs. And they have the right to access that information as citizens. So we, as the Zimbabwe Media Commission, have been tasked with helping citizens pursue those rights, different rights. Yes, it can, for example, be just right to life. Maybe somebody is fighting for their right. Maybe they've been given a sentence, a death sentence, and they need to prove that perhaps they were not associated with it. They have a right, perhaps, for the police or the courts to release certain information. And if they're not happy with that information, if they're not happy with the response, they approach the commission. And the commission is mandated to help those citizens seek that information that would help them. And if those bodies do not cooperate, well, the Zimbabwe Media Commission can take active measures to make sure that they cooperate. And citizens still have recourse to the laws of the country, to the courts rather. Yes, so that's in terms of pursuit of a right. There is also just pursuit of public accountability. Yes, we are citizens. We need to know exactly how public funds are dispersed in this country, because we pay rates, we're ratepayers, we pay taxes. We have a right to know how, for example, Zimra is dispersing its funds, how much it has collected, and so forth and so forth. So we urge citizens to go ahead, seek that information. So the Act has set what are called information officers that are supposed to be within every public institution that would help those citizens approach them and seek that information. We've just finished designing a template because just to make it easier for people who are seeking information, that there should be a standard template where that is relied upon to ask and seek that information. So that's one of the things we do, and we monitor that. And I think generally that is it. We encourage women and youth to be active members of their society by seeking information that would just help them be better people, more informed. And I would say we're happy with the Act.
So I am so grateful, Commissioner, that you have explained these things, and we totally appreciate the need for issues of administration. And I think this is quite a good law and quite reasonable. One of the key things that we would maybe expect from the Commission, in fact, before I go to expectation, I want to celebrate you for that paper, because people are already asking for it, to say, where is the form? How do I write? How do I write? So So that form that you spoke about earlier is very progressive, and thank you for that. Activists were already asking those questions. That's the third thing that I wanted to talk about. Then, just coming to the issue of admin fees, I think we will test it, we'll see how much it's going to be requiring, but most fundamentally, I think as citizens, we're being encouraged to use it. We can't keep complaining. We can't keep saying, I think this is very progressive. Even the issue of the abuse between 48 and 21, it's important that the Commission, we now know the Commission is ready to assist us to exercise our right to freedom of information. Now, and I want to thank you, Commissioner Miriam, for taking your time from your very busy schedule to educate the nation and to just let us know from the Commission's standpoint what's going on. Maybe I'll give you a 30-second to just close and encourage citizens.
I just take this time, thank you again, these 30 seconds to encourage citizens to please come out and go and seek this information. It is a right. A right is something that is protected by the Constitution. Let's use it, and let's maybe complain after we have used it first than to just complain sitting at home and crying about that it's not there when it's actually there. So please take advantage of it, especially women, especially young people. Come out and let's talk. Our doors at the Commission are always open for ideas, for suggestions, and for open engagements. We are trying to move away from the old order and just embrace new things and new ways of thinking. Information is the new gold, as they say, so let's handle it and let's use it together. Thank you very much.
Welcome back to the conversation that we're having here about the new Freedom of Information Act that is replacing IPA. Tatonzwa from our lawyers to say this is constitutional, this is something positive. As it would we want to hear kuti inotibata sei zvinondibatsirei my bread and butter issues kunotora information yamurutore information yakaita sei vekumarights
inobatsira chaizvo nekuti chapter 4 of our constitution, it provides for my social and economic rights edu. We have a right to education, the right to food, the right to decent shelter, the right to education, the right to clean potable water, for instance. And most women are mostly affected.
And by women, girls and youths.
Yes, exactly. Yes, yes, because women are the ones who bear the brunt when there are poor public services. For instance, if there's no water, it's the women who have to go and walk long distances to fetch that water. Even when there's no energy, it's women who have to go and look for firewood. So it's very important that as citizens, women then go and participate, particularly women and girls. Why am I saying women and girls? Because they are the ones who are marginalized in society. Yes, so they should get access to this information.
Saka information yakaita sei tanzwa kuti kodzero dzedu education, health, zviri kubatana papi nepublic finance yamatora yeye, zviri kubatana papi negovernance neaccountability kuti isu semadzimai echikuru nechidiki vane disability nevasina mayouths ari kutsvaga mabasa ari kungwavha ari kushaura orarama sei vakaenda online vari kungonzwa kuti corruption kwakati zvinosangana papi nemutemo munyowani kuti isusu semadzimai kana kuti magirls kana kuti mayouths tizive nezvemutemo unotibatsire chii about our day to day.
Unotibatsira nokuti kana takukwanisa kuenda kukanzuro tichikwanisa kubvunza kuti kanzuro mari yamakatora semarevenue, for instance, patakabhadhara mvura, patakabhadhara magetsi yakashandei mari iyo. Nokuti mari iyo inofanira kushanda kuvandudza budiriro yemucommunity muri kugara vanhu. Inofanira kushanda kuti ma-development projects, for instance. In fact, inofanira kushanda even for the health of the people who are living in that community, because vanhu vakaenda kuchipata havasi kukana kumaclinic kune kusina mishonga, for instance izvo tiri mu-COVID-19 and most of my council clinics ndo vari kupa ma-vaccinations. So that money is quite important and relevant to improve our healthcare system, our health delivery system. For instance, for the longest of time, women have been affected, particularly in their maternal health.
Yes.
Okay, yes, because it's women who are the biggest consumers of healthcare. And as a result, it is very important that women then know how these funds are managed, even at the local level, per council level.
because kune devolution yekutaura kuti mazuva ano mari dzichandiswa kumakanzuro, and then there is a talk of high impact programs this devolution is focusing on. Saka zvinenge zvakuzo madzimai, how can they engage munyaya dzakadaro? So for example, I've been hearing a lot, like I'm saying, nyaya high impact hainei nechekuita ne health. For the most part, haisi directly touching nyaya dzematernal mortality, haisi directly touching nyaya dzekuti madzimai anonobatsirirwa pakaita sei, haisi directly touching iri kuita, or maybe you can help me understand kuti inobatsira here kueducation kwamataura kwa nezvevana vakawanda havasi kuenda kuchikoro. Mataura imimi nyaya dzekuti tikaona information then nenyaya 21 days, but practically speaking zvinotibatsira sei, zvinoendeka sei?
Zvinotibatsira if citizens are able to participate in the economic governance.
Leaders are prepared here kuti women girls youths aende kunotsvaga information here yekuti makapiwa $15 billion makaitei nemari yedu, kukanzura hakuna mvura, magetsi hazvisi kuita, zvese hazvisi kuita.
Ipapo mubvunzo kuti is it prepared? I'm sure it's in the constitution.
Right.
It's a constitutional right. Saka
now pantori nemutemo kuti unogonosungisa munhu.
Exactly. It's a constitutional. So why don't we put the act to the test?
Right.
Why don't we put the government to the test?
Right.
Yes, exactly. Let's
go wow. So this is a call for you, citizen. You and I, hanzi madzimai, vanasikana, my youths, vari disabled, kana pane zvisiri kuitika kwane mutemo wekuti kana kune mismanagement amuri kususpecta, munoenda kukanzuro, munoenda kugovernment, munobvunza imimi kuti zvinhu zviri kufamba sei. Madam Nompilo, takatarira mutemo uyu zvamaishuvira kuti zvinge zviripo, tanangana nefu tichitarira kuripilo kwakaitwa aipa, kuripilo tirongoti kubviswa, haisisiko. Mutemo unonzi aipa ukaona uchisungwa uchinzi tiri kushandisa aipa, hakuchina uchashande mutemo iwo. Asi taudza kuti wakadivhaidwa into 3 now, zvinhu zvaiketwa neaipa zvazviri zvitatu. Chimwe chacho ndo chatafambira nhasi chefreedom of information, kuti iwewe kana une information yauri kuda ukada unobvunza kuti kune corruption kuitika kukanzuro kwedu, kana kuchechi machechi ari concerned, are included. Public bodies,
they might not fall under public, but yeah, they are private entities.
But private entity,
faith-based organizations are private entities.
Kuchechi kwako iwewe kana uri kuda kutodza kuti matights ako ari kufamba sei, because ndokune nyanya futi ikoko kuti kuri kubiwa mari, vanhu vari kubirwa mari. Mamwe ndinoziva mamwe machechi anotoita ma-annual ma-annual board meetings ekuti ma-members anodedza kuti uyai kumusangano. Saka, madam, take it away.
Well, we mentioned so many interesting things, but there's something I wanted to mention before I forget.
Yes.
That as much as we have this 21-day period, which we as MISA are concerned, I mean, journalists need information, they need to break the news. So definitely 21 days would be quite long. But something that we need to remember is that there's a 48-hour period that's also provided, where that information concerns maybe the right to life. Maybe it's health information and you need it very urgently. Right. Or maybe it's something relating to
maybe
the liberty
corruption
of a person. Maybe they've been arrested.
Yes.
And when it concerns the liberty of a person, it's very urgent and they have a window of 48 hours. So I think it's important also for,
I think it's
for the viewers to know that there's that 48-hour period. But also now, when we look at IPA and the segments that were unbundled, just to put it in there, I'm sure we we should have touched on it earlier.
Right.
Yes. So the other aspect was on media regulation.
Yeah. And so I understand there's another law that's being made around that.
Actually, it has already been enacted. Rather, it's already put into law. It's already being enforced. It was enacted in April this year. That's the Zimbabwe Media Commission Act. And I'd be happy for Identities TV to also take up a conversation around
You're welcome. Anytime.
Yes. And then the other component on protection of personal information, that should be catered for by the Cybersecurity and Data Protection Bill. That was gazetted last year in May, but it's not yet a law. So hopefully when it becomes law, it will cater for those issues. Yes, clawback clauses. We don't
but we don't, anyway, we want to focus on freedom of information.
Yes, so maybe something that I'd want to highlight here is, I think it's something that is a concern for us as MISA, that this law was gazetted in July. July last year. So
Yeah.
it's almost a year
Yeah.
since it was gazetted. And people are not engaging with this law.
Handizia
Vana
nachayo.
vasikuiziva, vana vasikuita ma-information requests. They don't even know how to do it. So I think there's a gap there. But also something that is maybe widening the gap is that in terms of the Act, ZMC, the Zimbabwe Media Commission, is supposed to issue regulations that show the manner in which you request information. Maybe it will be a form or something which lays out how you request information. As it stands, the regulations are not there.
Right.
So that makes it difficult for other people. I mean, we have CBOs, community-based organizations that we've been working with, and they've been writing letters.
Yeah.
But for ordinary citizens, they'd want a form that guides them in terms of the information they need to put when they are requesting from the information officers. So I think that's a gap there, which maybe if you get to engage with the commission, you'd ask them on our behalf.
Saying that we need this, but I feel like this is a place to start from, to say, okay, matitira ektiedu, this is what you have given us, and also this is what we wish for. It's also very pleasant to know that there are further steps that should be taken, but I don't want us to zero into the nitty-gritty. I mean, of course, these are the practicalities of it, but what is it that you'd like to say when you look at the previous law, the current law, the moving forward for citizens as we draw near the closure of our conversation, ladies?
Thank you very much for that, Nyari. I think for me the key issue is that this law is bringing about inclusion. Because in terms of this law, if you want to request information, you can do that in any language. I mean, we have 16 official languages in our constitution. So you should be able to request information in any of those 16 languages. So whether you are down there in Binga and you speak Tonga, you are still able to request information from the necessary stakeholders in a language that you understand. And they should also be able to provide you that information in a language that you understand. So I think that inclusion is going to be important going forward, because I think everyone is going to be able to engage on issues that relate to the national discourse. And just like what Eve was saying, issues of public finance, they're very important to us as taxpayers.
Fundamentally speaking,
Yes, so that inclusivity is very important, and we quite appreciate it.
Lovely, lovely. Eve?
Yes, I'm also very happy about the inclusion that she's really been talking about, because there's another aspect of public finance management, debt management, for instance. And Zimbabwe has got... Exactly. And we've got about 8.2 billion in terms of debt, our external debt as Zimbabweans. And citizens, we can actually demand accountability in terms of the debt management. For instance, we can actually demand to see how the resources that were acquired from the debt were actually used, were they used to benefit the youths, were they used to benefit women.
Yes.
So it's a very progressive
education. I mean, for me, what is on my heart as well is the issue of girls' education, the issues of youth, empowerment and all those things. Women, ndo vari kufa vachizvara, and yet kunenge kuchinzi mari dzauya. But I want us to talk about nyaya yemadeals, guys. Yavamtuli. We hear kuti kwaita, an opportunity number yada yauya tasaina deal nemachina zvakati. People are concerned about nyaya dzecorruption. Kwaita kukwekwe kwaonekwa inonzi chigoridhe kana kuti ngoda rakuda pakati vanhu vazongonzi bhai. So how do people practically ndada inini? Do you feel like mutemo uchati chinjira nyika in terms of kutoti corruption ipere? Nekuti zvinhu zvakadaro, I think in the past it was not possible to go kunobvunza vamtuli kuti tanzwa kuti masaina kana kuti kwapresident masaina deal nechina rakati. What's in for us? What other are these institutions ready? Kana tichazonzwa watambobvunza earlier, kuti azvizonzi here maybe classified. To what extent?
I think it's very important. Thank you for raising that question. I know that, for instance, the information on the Afrexim bank loans was actually released after citizens.
Oh, really?
Yes, actually demanded that information from the Ministry of Finance. So it's very progressive. We can now see how much were the Afrexim bank loans, what is in it for Zimbabwe, what are the benefits, what are the demerits, for instance, of these resource-based loans. And our law, Section 298, says that the burden and also the benefits of resources should be shared equally between present and future generations. So this affects our youths as well. So if they are able to access that information, it's very important for them to then advocate for the government to make more progressive policies that actually ensure that youths and women and the disadvantaged, they benefit from the benefits and the use of resources, and also they also get to also then incur also the burdens that are associated with debt.
So, as we wrap up, ladies, I know I could have you the entire day. What is it that you want us to take away, and what do you want us to take away?
That's a very great question. And I think we could go on and on about what kind of information are we going to get, what if we don't get that information. So for me, the key takeaway would be, let us test the law. Each and every citizen, men, women, the youths, civil society, let us test the law. Let us file our information requests. Let us give them the requisite time to give us feedback. If we don't get the information, let us appeal to the Zimbabwe Media Commission so that we can test this law and make sure that the law is enforced. Because as we do that, we'll also be exercising our constitutional rights. I think that would be my key takeaway for that.
A right, if it's not exercised, is not a right. It is for you guys, for me, for everyone to test it.
Requests for information can be made, and in this era we are talking about gender responsive public services, and it's quite important for women to access this information so that there can be improvement, particularly in public service delivery. Thank you.
Wow. You have been following a high-level conversation that we've been having here in the studio with these ladies. You heard from the minister earlier on. You heard from other stakeholders telling us about the new Freedom of Information Act that allows you and I to have access to any form of information from any public or private bodies or organizations. I do hope that as we are going on with this My Freedom of Information campaign, you get to use it. Don't go away. Stay with us, because there is another conversation that's coming.